friends, welcome to another process video. This time I'm sharing a layout with a Simple Stories collection called Kate and Ash from a few years ago. And I'm going with a background design here that features 1/2-inch paper strips. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a couple moments, but that's sort of the process you're seeing me completing right now. And this layout had a very interesting journey. It started as a layout for pear tree cut files, and you'll see I have a cut file there on my desk that says Fit for a Queen with a photo of me from Disney in a queen's chair. And I already backed the letters with papers from this collection, and then I decided that I needed to decide what the layout was going to be like. And I have a whole Pinterest board full of different quilt inspired designs that would be easy to recreate with paper. And so this was one of the quilt inspired designs that I saw in my Pinterest board, and I thought it would be a really fun one to recreate. And so once I create the whole background, I laid my cut file back down on top of the background, and it was just way too busy. And I think that if I hadn't backed the letters of Queen with pattern paper, I could have maybe backed them with vellum, or maybe backed them with a small pattern or something that wasn't as busy. Maybe it could have worked, but in the long run it just didn't work with this background. But I loved this background and I wanted it to shine, so I decided to change the photo, change the idea once I get this background done. And I switch out the photo for something else, and I end up using no cut file on this at all, just embellishments from this Kate and Ash collection. And I did use that cut file on another layout that's soon to come, so it didn't completely go to waste. It just got repurposed onto a different layout. So like I said before, I'm cutting 1/2-inch strips here, and it looks like a mess right now, but it does come together, you'll see. And you saw me a couple minutes ago laying washi tape down on white cardstock, and I saw someone do this on Instagram as a way to use their washi. Sort of like pattern paper, and it works awesome. It really was a fun technique, and I've been thinking about other ways that I can make that work. So what I'm doing now, I laid out all the strips, cut them all down to 1/2 inch, got my papers in order of how I wanted them to go, and now I am gluing these papers down, one vertically, one diagonally, sort of like just the corner of a square. And when they meet together in the corner, I just left them overlapped, and then I'm taking my scissors and I'm doing something called mitering the corners, and I'll kind of walk you through as I do this one. So I'm laying that strip down and laying the other one horizontally, and then I'm cutting through both corners at one time with my scissor, and it helps to have a longer pair of scissors when you're doing that. And then it cuts off a triangle on each end, and then the ends meet up really nicely. Another little tip for making a layout like this with this kind of background is to use a grid pattern paper. And so this pattern paper is a craft background, and it has a very tiny sort of tone-on-tone grid. And what I did was I made sure every time I laid down a new strip, I counted the number of squares. And I think I have 4 little squares in between each strip, and that helped make it consistent. It helps make it straight. I think this would be possible, but a little more difficult to do if you were using just like a white piece of white cardstock or pattern paper. I think it would be a little trickier to get it all lined up. So that's a suggestion I have if you want to try this. Get some grid pattern paper out. So I'm going through, I'm laying all of those down, mitering all of the corners. Once I have them all laid down, I did go off camera back and I stitched with my sewing machine through every single section, every single half square, I guess we can call it. And that really anchors it down, and also I love the texture that stitching can add to a layout. So we're getting close, almost to the corner. I really like this pattern, and I think it's a nice way to showcase pattern papers without it being too busy. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different patterns in the long run on this. And I don't think it's overwhelming or too busy. So this is a great way to add a lot of patterns in, and you really don't need a lot of pattern paper, just 1/2-inch strips, and 2 of them at the most. And you saw when I got down to the smaller half squares, I even used just 1 strip or just a scrap piece of paper because you don't need a large piece. And I decide I just need 1 more in there. At this point, I sort of didn't have very many patterns left, but I found this one, which works perfectly. So I get that all lined up. And then my background is done. And you'll see when I come back on with it, I have added the stitching and a brand new photo. So I actually thought this photo worked really well with this layout and this collection, because it is a photo of me the day before my wedding, kind of doing a little spa day at the nail salon, getting a manicure and a pedicure, relaxing, and a lot of the icons that are in this collection are perfect for that. So this is the die cut pack, and I think I actually mixed together the bits and pieces and the die cuts into one, so there's a lot of stuff in here that I go through. And my first thought is I want to put something underneath the photo to sort of anchor it, because the background can get overwhelming if you just put embellishments right down on top of it, because there's a lot of patterns going on there. There's a lot of color, and so by putting something to anchor it down, like that circle, then my little pieces and embellishments that are going to go on top of it will not get lost. I decided to put some white cardstock. I offset it a little bit. I also backed my photo with a piece of vellum, give it a little bit of a soft layer. I'm going to pop it up with some foam, and then I get to work tucking lots of little pieces all around the photo. I want to get my title locked in so that I don't run out of room for it, and I end up going with this word flawless. And at first I put it down there on the black and white, and it kind of gets lost, so I do end up moving it up to the pink. And I think it pops a lot better up on the pink. It doesn't get as lost there. And I liked the idea of embellishing in the bottom left corner, and then your eye kind of goes from the bottom left corner diagonally across the page all the way up to the top right corner, and along your way you'll see the photo and my embellishment clusters. Now, one thing I love to do with the foam titles is I like to cut off the pieces that I want. And so you'll see I cut off 2 little hearts there that I want to try to incorporate. That's also a great thing to do when you are unsure of a title or you want to test it out. Leave it on the clear backing and then cut it out, and then you can lay it over on your layout and see exactly what it's going to look like. So I end up going with that circle with the hearts on it on the right side of the photo, and then that pink with the black and white polka dot border piece up on the top left. And many people have mentioned this idea with die cut packs of going through it and just pulling out the pieces that will work for your layout. And you'll see then I put all those die cuts away, so it's not too overwhelming. And with the chipboard, I like to punch it all out at once, because I find that on especially the Simple Stories chipboard, once you punch one out, the rest kind of all fall out. So I usually punch them out and then I just stick them in. This was some kind of packaging. This was an old LA Studio package that I was no longer using. And I picked lots of pieces that were all about pampering, like the slippers, the nail polish. I don't end up using that blow dryer. the face mask. And I like to have a mix in my clusters of the paper die cuts along with some chipboard. I also like to vary the height, so I popped those slippers up on foam tape so they're even with the photo, and then I was able to tuck the sleep mask underneath. I don't end up sticking with those eyelashes that I put there. I end up putting in a can of the dry shampoo. And I find that the chipboard does need a little bit extra adhesive just to make sure it stays there forever. So I'm adding some brads. And since this collection, Simple Stories, has changed their brads a little bit, where they're adhesive backed, these were actual brads, which is fine, but now that I've been using more of the adhesive backed, I have to say I much prefer those. You'll see a little bit later I add a brad in a different spot, and I don't get it in a good spot, and I have to take it out and then repoke the hole and stick it back through, which works just fine because you kind of hide that original hole behind the brad, but sometimes it's a guessing game as to whether you're poking that hole in the right spot or not. Alright, I'm working on my next embellishment cluster, and again I started with a chipboard piece, and then I'm adding in those nail polishes, which are die cuts, and then another chipboard piece with those shopping bags. And then the heart in the speech bubble is a sticker from the sticker sheet, which I popped up on foam. I love phrase stickers. I think I could use 100 sheets of phrase stickers. Simple Stories phrase stickers are fabulous. And they're always just the right phrases. I don't know how they do it. So I'm adding just a few here and there. I add 2 over there. The pink one says, "Yes, girl," and then the white one says, "Shine bright, pretty girl." I added a phrase sticker over on the dry shampoo container also. It says, "You go, girl." And now I'm working on one more embellishment cluster. I like to keep those in a visual triangle. So this one is going under Flawless. And I realized I need something to anchor it. Like I had the circle piece and then the pink bracket piece. So I pulled out a little yellow, sort of like ticket die cut that was in the die cut packs. And I'm going with a chipboard camera, a die cut piece, and some stickers. The lipstick and the lip gloss there is a sticker. I try to repeat elements too, like that heart speech bubble. I was trying to find 3 of them so that I have 1 in each cluster. And now I'm going back to add the brads in. I just kind of lay them out to show you where they're going to go. And then through the magic of editing, you will see they magically appear there. And there we go. There is my final layout. Took a few turns throughout the process, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. I love that I was able to use a lot of the little bits and pieces that I think would typically maybe be a little hard for me to use, but they seem to work perfect with this photo. So thank you so much for stopping by today, and I'll see you next time.